up?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. It's going good.
All right. Well, first of all, let's do the official welcome inside the Crazy Ant Farm, man.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
Look, I'm thrilled. I've been a huge fan since the Buffy days, man. So this is an exciting one for me. I was so happy when you said you'd do it, man.
I really appreciate it, and I love all your positive tweets. It's I read those things, and it makes me feel good, and particularly around Proven Innocent and Rebel in the Rye, and it's neat to have that kind of support. So just so you know, those things affects people.
Absolutely, man. And it's one of the reasons why I was excited to have you on the show, because we've been blessed to have a lot of guests on the show who are like yourself, who do interact with the fans and who are kind and pay attention to what they do. And I think that's something really special, and I think the fans, on the flip side, appreciate it as much as you guys appreciate it. So I think there's something to be said for that. And you're very welcome for Proven Innocent, man. Look, I was upset you guys did not get a second season. Huge fan of that show. I just feel like we're in an age.
Bracket.
Yeah, it is. And we're in that age, man, where I feel like you don't get a chance to build an audience, and
yeah,
it was tough, but I loved it. Phenomenal cast and great show. So glad you brought that up.
Yeah, thanks. No, it was I thought a really neat way to do a network legal drama, and to do it, surrounding the Innocence Project and wrongful conviction, to really take that sort of very fun mainstream genre and to infuse that kind of subject matter into it in a way where it wasn't, medicine that was good for you. It made the show even more exciting and dynamic. So I was proud of it and disappointed it didn't have a longer run, but you can't win them all.
No, you can't. And at least you had the opportunity to wrap it up successfully, which was good for the fans. I got to tell you, my favorite part is Nikki's doing the podcast every week. Kind of doing the narration of it. Fantastic, man, just fantastic.
Yeah, that was a great device. That David Elliott, the creator of the show, came up with that to do, to frame the show within a podcast, and I thought it was so clever. Because you could really sort of hammer home, the themes and the ideas and the issues in a way that it was organic, that tied the episodes up in a powerful way. I thought it was a very, very clever narrative device he came up with.
Absolutely. So listen, we've got a lot of really happy fans right now because we've got a huge base of Gilmore Girls fans, Buffy fans. I mean, you've been Mad Men. You've been on some major shows, my friend, some major shows.
Sure.
So, and I got to tell you, Billions, I'm loving Billions. That scene with you at the urinal, I still crack up every time I see it, man. That was hilarious.
Thanks. It's funny, when we shot it, David Levine, the co-creator, I said, "Hey, man, he doesn't look taller than me in this shot, does he?" Because I'm not comfortable with that if it is. And David went, "No. See, the camera, it evens you guys out. It makes everything even." I'm like, okay, we can continue. It's fine.
That is hilarious. So obviously we want to talk about, because Emmy winner, Golden Globe winner, you're not just an actor, writer, producer, director, phenomenally so at each of them, if we do say so ourselves. Just a brilliant guy. And we've got some writers in our bunch who are very curious and to have some questions, and we've got a lot of people trying to break into the industry too. So we kind of want to talk to you about that and what it was like to get started and how the whole writing thing came along. Logan, what you got? I know you got a question.
Yeah, what was your biggest challenges as a young writer?
The challenges, they're sort of endless. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the script.
Yeah.
So the script is everything, and you just need to write a lot of scripts to get good at writing scripts. Mm-hmm. So you need to just keep doing it and not go write a script and then say, I'm going to now dedicate the next 15 years of my life getting this one script made.
Right.
Once you finish your first script, then set it down, go have a drink. If you don't drink, go have a nice meal, wake up the next day, and then start your next one.
Right. Definitely.
And then write one after that. So it's really about writing begets, getting better at it is just from doing it and from rewriting and and you learn so much. I view every note session that I have with my producers or my executives as a film school for me, because I'm going to learn subconsciously how to do things better by getting feedback and notes on what isn't working for people.
That's very interesting. I love that approach. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw a quote too where you had some advice for advanced writers, that because you do hear so often, write what you know, write what you know, write what you know. But I saw a great thing where you said, write what you have a passion for, even if you don't know about it or aren't skilled in it. And I think, is that true? Is that an accurate quote? And because that's a great piece of advice, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think write what you know is advice to give to an amateur. You know, if you're a lawyer and you want to write your first novel, and that's all you want to do is write a novel, you've always wanted to write a novel, then go write a legal novel, you know?
Right.
But a professional writer who writes every day, who is, and to me, that's what makes someone a professional writer, not whether they're getting paid, but whether they write every day. Because I wrote for 7 years before I got paid for it. And, you know, several years into those 7 years, I viewed myself as a professional writer because I'd been writing scripts for 4 years and I was doing it all the time. So I think if for a professional writer, you don't necessarily have to write, quote, what you know, but write what you're interested in, what you're passionate about. I mean, I've written projects that have been, you know, very, very successful, and I knew nothing about the subject matter before I started writing them. Literally nothing. And there's this thing that you can do, and it's called research.
Yes,
exactly.
You research, and then you can talk to people that do it, you know.
Absolutely.
And then you can really dive into it. And often the way I pick my projects are things that are, because I know it's going to go on for a long time, that I'll be writing on this thing for who knows how long, anywhere from 6 months to multiple years.
Oh, wow.
So often it'll be, part of my thought process will be, well, you know, am I going to enjoy working on this for several years? Is this going to be interesting to me? As far, you know, what it's about, am I going to, so the point being that if nothing ever comes of it, because often nothing does, will those years or months working on it have been time well spent?
Right.
And I remember when I wrote my first drama, which was the movie Recount, the idea that I was ever going to sell it was totally insane, and I knew that. I knew that was pretty much impossible for a writer who had never sold anything to sell a political drama. And I thought, well, even if I never sell it, it's going to be time well spent researching this, because then I'll know a lot about the Florida recount, and that's going to be really interesting to me. Definitely. So is that simple, right? Isn't that just a very simple thought of well, you know,
I love it.
What the hell? Let's do it.
I absolutely love it. I love that approach. I love everything you said. And on the flip side of that, we hear that from a lot of our actor guests all the time too. It's 90% auditioning, only 10% actually working. And I feel like it's the same thing with the writer. You're writing constantly, whether you're getting paid for it or not. And I think that's brilliant advice and a great strategy. And by the way, Recount, phenomenal. Same with Game Change. I'm a political junkie, so I loved both. I thought they were fantastic. So, and okay, a couple of movies we definitely, I know Logan is jumping at the bit to get to with The Butler. Huge Oprah fans. We're huge Oprah fans. And obviously Rebel in the Rye. How about that one? Was that a passion project for you? How did that one come about? Because I know there was a lot that went into getting that movie made, correct?
Yeah, no, that's the most personal thing I've ever worked on, without a doubt. In fact, most things I've written aren't personal at all. As far as they don't have anything to do with my life. They're things that I'm angry about, or things I want to discuss, or social issues I want to shine a light on. But I actually haven't lived it at all. And Rebel in the Rye, the reason why I wanted to direct it when I came up with the idea of doing the film was I wanted to direct it because I thought, oh, well, this is actually very personal. This is about the writing process and the creative journey and the birth of an artist. And to me, the story of Salinger, you know, I don't view that movie as a biopic. I view it as a tale of the artist's journey. So when people would call it a biopic, I thought, no, it's not a biopic. It's the story of how he wrote Catcher in the Rye, and in telling that story, and then what the book did to him after it came out, and in telling that story, it's telling this universal story of the birth of an artist and what that journey is. And when we screened this at the Writers Guild, it played like gangbusters because they immediately knew that's what it was.
Yeah. And what I really liked about it, because I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with the story, they just think this guy was a hermit, a recluse from the get-go, but he had a life, and he had a lot going into what led to him writing that book. And I think you do a great job of showing that in the film.
Yeah, he was a creature of New York City. It was this charismatic, sort of rich kid. I mean, he was New York City, Upper East Side, going to the Stork Club, hitting on girls, wanting to be a writer. The work was very young and juvenile, but there was an interesting voice there. And then he goes to World War II and has severe PTSD. And from that PTSD, he creates one of the most iconic novels of all time about a troubled teenager. Yep. And I found that story, when I read this biography on him, I didn't know any of that, and I was so moved by that Holden Caulfield was the creation of someone who had seen the darkest horrors of war and had clearly, in my opinion, undiagnosed PTSD. And I think that's ultimately what led him to New Hampshire, what led him to isolation, and what led him to writing for the rest of his life and never showing anyone the writing. I mean, that's very therapeutic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And he doesn't want to show anyone the writing because that fucks up the therapy.
Exactly.
Like that's not the point anymore. The point is not for anyone to read it. The point is to in some ways calm a troubled mind who doesn't even know that the mind is troubled in a way. Yep. And you look at his diet and the way he ate and the meditation and all of that, to me screams someone trying to cure their deeply troubled mind. And they didn't even know about PTSD basically till the Vietnam era.
Exactly.
And once they started, diagnosing it, I mean, it was incredibly impactful for people. They instantly related to, yes, this is what's going on.
Absolutely, and I got to tell you, you could not have picked a better lead. I thought Nicholas Hoult just nailed it. A phenomenal job. And we got to give a shout out to Amy Rutberg, who plays Betsy Hopkins. We've had Amy on the show before. She was a fantastic guest. Love her. She had nothing but kind words to say about you as well. So,
I love Amy. We go way back. I've known Amy since she was 20 years old.
Oh wow!
And I remember her running an audition with me. You practice your auditions with other actors, right?
Right.
And she was running her audition. She was 20 years old, and I thought, oh my God, she's amazing. I just instantly knew how talented she was, and I'm so thrilled to see that she's still working and thriving and has done so well over the years. I think she's a great actress and is going to keep working.
We agree, and we would love to see you guys do something together.
Well, she was in Recount.
Yep.
She was in Rebel in the Rye.
Yep.
Tried to get her in Empire once, but
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would have been epic.
Yeah,
honestly,
it didn't happen.
But yeah, well, I can say she echoed every sentiment. Just spoke almost the same exact wording towards you. She thinks you're phenomenal and has loved working with you and is happy to see you doing what you're doing. So it's nice to hear. I mean, stuff like that. Okay, I know. Logan is jumping at the bit. The Butler.
Yeah, seriously. How do you go about getting in contact with the one and only Oprah? How does that even happen?
I just called her. I'm like, Oprah. I had nothing to do with getting Oprah. It was all Lee Daniels. So Oprah produced Precious.
Yes.
And Lee directed The Butler and got her the script. And I have to say, when I heard she wanted to do it, I thought, I think this movie's going to get made.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
I didn't know if it was ever going to get made, and it was it was that specific phone call was the moment of, oh wow, this could actually happen. It was a really ambitious project, you know.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
After the movies get made, there's a sense that, well, of course it got made, right?
Right.
But when you're in the middle of it, it's the opposite. It's actually, this is never going to get made.
Right, like, oh
this
shit.
is never going to happen. They all feel like they're never going to happen. And it's the amount of work and the willing them into existence is pretty staggering, actually. And that one was so... You know, it was you know, the story of a White House butler over 40 years,
right?
And in telling that story, it was really the story of the history of the civil rights movement in America.
Yep.
You know, the concept for me was slavery to Obama, and that's why it opened in the fields, even though it wasn't technically slavery. It felt like it, though, right?
Right, exactly.
It feels like slavery still exists, even though it's the 20s. And it was slavery to Obama. So I'm really proud of that script. It's the most complicated thing I've ever written, to maintain dramatic tension over a 40-year period.
Absolutely.
And to tell a cohesive story that has a spine with a character arc is very, very challenging. And I had great collaborators. Laura Ziskin, who was this iconic producer. She passed away before we made it, but she, working with her on this was really, she was a huge part, a huge, cheerleader of the project, and Pam Williams, who worked with her, and of course Lee Daniels. It was a lot of people put a lot of passion into it.
Absolutely.
Well, we would get killed if we did not bring up the Gilmore Girls. Like, we have such a huge fan base of Gilmore Girls. My girlfriend is a huge fan. I've binge watched it like 5 times now because of her, and rightfully so. It's phenomenal. And we just got to talk about the chemistry you and Paris there have. They're just phenomenal. And I love how you're also a screenwriter in the revival of Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, that was I thought very clever. What an amazing thing to be a part of, that show, which has just grown over the years. I feel like post Buffy and Gilmore Girls, I would get recognized 80% of the time for Buffy and 20% of the time for Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
And then something happens. Sorry, they're doing construction underneath me in the apartment underneath, so sorry if there's any loud noise, but something happened, and I think what happened was just literally Gilmore Girls started airing on Netflix.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it just flipped.
Yeah.
And the show has just grown and grown and grown. And I feel like it is such a major part of TV history now. It feels like it's bigger now than it ever was.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree completely. And I feel like it was at the disadvantage when it first started, being on the WB before the CW, right. And it was hard to find at first. And now it's, I agree, a huge cult. You and Liza were just, phenomenal. The whole character of Doyle was hysterical to me every time I watch it.
Thank you. I loved working with her. She is so cool. See, Paris was one of my favorite characters on the show. Yeah. Before I started dating her, I just thought she was hilarious. And just a really gifted actress. And she's nothing like that in real life. It's a pure character. Right. That she does. Liza's just super cool, She's just like this really cool person. So the whole thing was just a wonderful experience. Everyone always treated me really great on that show. Alexis and Lauren and, the Palladinos, Amy and Dan. I view them as sort of, surrogate aunt, uncle to. There you go. They're just the lovely people, and they've become so close over the years.
That's fantastic. And that's good to hear that everybody's kind of close and everything, because it comes across that way. And it's always good to hear stories like that.
Yeah, it seems like a real family dynamic, honestly.
Yeah. No, it's a wonderful experience. I'm so proud to be a part of it.
And I love that you brought up Buffy. So it switched from Jonathan to Doyle at some point, right?
Yeah, it did. It was really kind of wild, and it happened over a 6-month period.
That is so crazy.
And I still get recognized for Buffy, but not to the extent that it was for many years.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll shift back now. There's rumors, right, that a Buffy reboot or revisit's in the works, maybe. So you never know, right?
Yeah. I have no idea. I mean, the two of them, they're such two of the most iconic shows of that era.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so exciting to have been a part of both of them. And they were both beautifully written. I mean, just really, Joss Whedon and Amy Sherman Palladino and Dan Palladino are just artists at the highest level.
Absolutely. Agreed. And I got to tell you, it's not just that. Mad Men, Justified, you were on some huge shows, man, that you just pulled off phenomenal performances on. So I got to ask you, because you're such a gifted writer. You're also fantastic in front of the camera. You're a suit. You're a creative. Where do you kind of, where's your area where you enjoy the most, or is it kind of an equal balance, or what do you prefer the most in all of the things that you do?
Everything's different. Mm-hmm. And they're all interrelated, but they're different skill sets. Mm-hmm. And they're different days. So it's one thing to sort of talk about it from a perspective of looking at the work, right?
Right.
It's another from the perspective of actually doing it, what that day is like when I'm acting or when I'm writing or when I'm directing, or producing. It's because that's what I'm actually doing,
Absolutely.
That's what I'm actually living. And I think the writing schedule is my favorite. Just days when I'm writing. It's also the hardest of all the jobs from my point of view. I find writing the most challenging. And I do it less. It's a 4 to 5 hour day. Mm-hmm. And I wake up and I take my time, and then I meditate a few minutes, and then I go sit myself down at a coffee shop, and then I write for 4 or 5 hours, and then I'm done. Right, and the 4 or 5 hours were very challenging and interesting and rewarding. Where acting, you show up and you're there for 14 hours and you're not doing stuff most of the day, and you're just kind of sitting there, and then you go do the scene, and that's really cool, right? That makes it all worth it.
Sure,
I'm thrilled to be doing the scene, but it's a lot of my mind wants to be doing other things.
Right.
I'm like, why am I not writing? I'm just sitting here all day.
Right.
And I actually write on set now.
Oh, that's cool.
And then directing is intense. That is all encompassing. I mean, that is the same schedule as the acting, although longer, because the actors can come and go during the day. But the director, you're first there, you're there till you wrap.
Right.
And it's like, that's like running a marathon.
Absolutely.
You are working all day long, and it's really intense. You're making decisions all day long. I love it. It's incredibly rewarding, but I'm also perfectly happy when the shoot is done.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. So you ever see yourself trying to do the old balancing act of directing and acting in your own picture? What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I have never put myself in anything that I've written or directed or produced. The only time that I was in The Butler, and it was only because an actor dropped out at the last minute, and so I was stepped in.
Okay.
I was literally just stepping in because we lost someone. I don't know what it is, why I don't put myself in anything. Maybe there's, I'm self-conscious about it, or I don't want there to be a perception that I'm writing or directing to get myself acting work, even though at this point I think I've made it clear that's the case.
Right.
But nonetheless, I'm maybe a little self-conscious about it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I also, I don't know. I also really like being hired as an actor. It makes me feel good. Yeah. Like people still want me and they still want to hire me. So it's a little silly, and if I want to act in something that I wrote, I should just go do it. But, nonetheless, that's sort of just my very honest answer of why I haven't yet.
I love that answer.
Yeah,
seriously, that's a great answer. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that I really enjoy the most about your writing is dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I think
thank you.
I think it's got to be one of the hardest things to do. And you do it brilliantly. You develop these character arcs and the backstories, and then the dialogue, and it's one of my favorite reasons to watch projects that you're involved in. Honestly.
Yeah, thanks. It's so interesting. We're in such a hypercritical period, and anything that sort of, I don't know, that sticks out or isn't hypernaturalism. Sometimes people jump all over it, and I find heightened dialogue, very entertaining and
absolutely
what I grew up on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's not all heightened, obviously, but so it can be challenging. It can be challenging because there's just, I don't know, a lot of. I'm always trying to find the balance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to find the balance, but I'm glad. It's nice to hear that you like it so much. So maybe tomorrow when I'm writing, I'll remember that.
No.
Write cool shit.
That's right,
Don't worry
man.
about it. Don't worry about it.
It's so true, and I mean every word. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy your work so much. So okay. We heard a story, and we've got to bring it up because I just think it's a fantastic story. Is it or is it not true that you used to spend a lot of your time as a kid hanging out with Quentin Tarantino at the video store?
It's 100% true.
Oh, man.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
100% true. I spent so much time with him at the video store that my nickname was Little Quentin. And I'd come in, and everyone would go, "Quentin, Little Quentin's here." And I was 10 years old, I was like 11 or 12, but I looked like I was 8 or 9. And I knew a lot about movies, and he taught me a lot about movies, and he recommended all these movies. He was literally the greatest video store clerk in the history of video stores. And that was sort of the beginning of my film education at a very young age.
Oh, that's fantastic. So how's he doing these days? No.
I don't know. I actually, there was this really amazing moment, which was the Golden Globes. Django Unchained and Game Change were in the same year,
right? And
we both won. And we were at this after party holding our Golden Globes, and Quentin was just holding court. He's like, "You don't understand, okay? This is Little Quentin, all right?
Oh my gosh!
Little Quentin's got a Golden Globe, okay?" I mean, it's just like no one has been more amused,
right,
by my journey than Quentin.
That's fantastic, and what a story to always have.
Exactly.
That is amazing. That's fantastic. So, what do you have coming up in the future? We were super stoked to see that they announced you're going to be in The Right Stuff coming up, right?
Yeah, that just came out of the blue a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's phenomenal. Huge fan of Patrick J. Adams. I was a huge fan of the film, so I think this thing's going to be huge.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I had heard they were doing The Right Stuff. And, a while ago, I don't know, 5-6 months ago when it was first announced, and I thought, what a terrific idea. That is a bullseye idea for a limited series or an ongoing series.
Absolutely.
And just telling the story of, Project Mercury and going through Apollo, right?
Yep.
Right.
I mean, I just thought home run and perfect for Nat-Geo. And then I didn't think twice about it. And then about 2 weeks ago, I got a call, and they just offered me the part of Shorty Powers, who was the PR rep for NASA.
Right.
And I thought, well, A, who else is going to play Shorty? They're going to stick with me. And then B, I mean, what a great part, a great project. And I'm a big fan of Patrick as well. So it was a fast yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations. Could not be more happy that you're involved with that. You got the final season of Empire coming up, right?
Final season of Empire, and we're working on that right now. I have this project with, it's a theater project. It's a show called Chess. It's a musical from the 80s that I rewrote.
Oh, awesome.
And we did it at the Kennedy Center last year, and, we're trying to keep the show going. And the producer of it is Tom Hulce, who is Mozart in Amadeus, the great actor Tom Hulce. And every every time we talk, I just love this guy.
Yeah.
He's not just a wonderful producer, which he is. He's a fantastic producer, but it's also Tom Hulse.
Exactly.
It's just it's fun. It's fun working with someone that you're so excited to be talking to.
Oh man, that's fantastic! I'm already jealous. Amadeus, I love Amadeus, man. That was fantastic.
One of the great. The two of them in that movie are just two of the great film performances of all time.
Agreed.
In the same movie.
Agreed.
And then I've got a bunch of things in the hopper that I can't talk about, but hopefully some of them will get made. I'm writing something, a limited series that I'm very excited about. Fingers crossed it gets greenlit. And then I have a TV company that, which is what Proven Innocent came under, was the TV company. And we're developing a whole slate of shows and going to try and get them on the air. It's a really exciting time in television. You have all these outlets,
right?
The streamers and the cable stations,
mm-hmm.
And the networks, right? Everyone, and it seems that what is being successful now are things that are original and feel fresh and feel unique. And so it's really opened up the industry from the buyer side to
mm-hmm.
being, excited about not your typical cookie cutter shows.
Absolutely.
And that's new. Normally to do something unique was a major uphill battle, but now it's sort of all ideas welcome. So we have a fun slate, and we're just beginning. We're a few months into it, but we're excited, and hopefully we'll get something going.
Well, look, we could not wish you more luck on it, and we hope it all works out because we're excited to see what you got. And we're just, when you do, you got to come back on, of course.
Yeah, of course, you guys are great.
Oh, well, listen, man, we really appreciate it. And look, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to us. Like I said, huge fan for a long time, and we've got a lot of listeners that are huge fans, and we could not thank you enough for coming on and joining us, man.
My pleasure, guys, and best of luck with the podcast. I feel like you guys know exactly what you're doing, so I see good things in your future, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Appreciate it, and you have a great rest of the night, and again, thank you, sir.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.